Hello and welcome, guys. Today's class, I'm going to be taking you through a little sequence that is brilliant for combat conditioning. So your jiu-jitsu, or if you are a fighter, this is great for your mobility and your strength. But if you're also someone who just loves to move and you want to get more mobile, this class is definitely for you. As well as we're going to go quite in depth in terms of how the gorilla crawling pattern works and some different variations that we can kind of mix together. All right, so first we're going to start in a squat. So I want you to start standing, okay? Let's first talk about the squat. So from standing, we're going to get our legs to be a bit wider than hip width distance apart. And I want us to actually start spreading out the toes nice and wide, okay? And you kind of almost, I want you to start with the pinky toe and the middle toes all the way to the middle toes, and then putting the big toe all the way to the last toes, okay? Because it's really important that we are able to find that activation in our feet. We're able to grip the mat underneath us. This just starts to get all the muscles fired and ready for action, all right? Because sometimes when we're moving, we're not really thinking about what our feet are doing, and if we keep them engaged, then we can move better. So what I want to do is grip the mat, nice wide not fingertips, toes, nice wide toes. And we're going to start by creating this bend in my knees. Now, sometimes people will struggle to get a nice range in a squat, okay? Because what I often see a lot of the time, and it's so common with especially people who are, past the age of 30, I see them struggling getting in and out of a squat, and not because you're old or anything like that. It's just simply because they haven't been practicing to do it in the correct way, but also probably just have been avoiding this kind of mobility work, right? So we're going to fix that. So what we're going to do is come a little bit wider. I like to have my feet quite wide. Think of pushing your knees out, that we're getting this engagement in our glutes. And then I'm going to start lowering into this squat. See here, I've already created an opening for myself to come into the squat. Because if I start really narrow here and I try to squat, it's a little bit more difficult, right? Even if I'm here, that range is more difficult. So what I want to do is give myself the opportunity to be successful. Okay, so that's the first place we want to start. Give yourself the opportunity to actually be successful in the movement. Don't just set yourself up for failure and give up, right? So we want to set it up. When you set it up, come as low as you can. Now, if this is as low as you can go, that's perfect, right? So we're going to start finding a bit of a movement here. See if you can rock from side to side. You might feel your legs starting to burn a bit. Remember your breath. Now, if you can, I want you to actually lean forward where you base your hands onto the mat. Maybe heel toe your feet slightly in, and see now if you can bend a little bit deeper into the squat. Again, finding some movement here. And this is really great for people that do struggle with the squat mobility, because often this is what I see. I see one or two things. Someone coming into a squat and then they feel that they don't have the ankle mobility, or their knees are just shot. So they end up feeling like they're going to either topple that way, right? Or they're going to topple that way. So we want to try and stay centered. Okay, we really want to try and build that endurance. Yes, if we can just sit here, hold it, right, for a bit, and then come out. So even if you do a few repetitions, hold it and come out. We already are starting to feel that burn in the legs. We're starting to feel the fire building up in the thighs. You'll see with each repetition, your hips actually start to open up. Another variation that we can do is if we come even wider, right, and try not to have your feet pointed out like this, right? Keep them slightly in. And then you're going to abduct your knees, come low. I actually like to grip my legs with my hands. And I want to almost turn my shoulder inside towards the mat and then push away from this right knee. Okay, that offers some resistance and also an opening in the hip. If I spiral over to the other side, I've got the same thing. See? Beautiful. Nice. Shake it out a little bit. Shake it out, shake it out. So we obviously, when working through the gorilla, we're working at a much lower level where we are on the ground and being able to travel across the ground efficiently. If a squat is uncomfortable, this work will be more tricky for you, more challenging. But that should actually excite you and get you to that point where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to learn and I'm going to try and get myself to that point. So if you are stuck at this point where you're like, okay, going down like this for me is not an option. Because what I don't want to see, for example, is I don't want to see people coming into a nice active squat and hunching over like this, right? Or toppling over. I want you to be gripping the mat, being able to stabilize yourself, straighten out your spine, so that we're somewhere here. This is where I want you. So even if you can experiment with that yourself, getting to this point where I've got a straight spine, lowering into my squat, standing up again. Even if you want to do a few reps, standing up again. But none of this where my knees are caving in and I'm rounding. Keep that straight spine. So you almost want to train yourself to retract the shoulders so that you can have a beautiful straight spine. Does that make sense, right? Like you don't want to be hunching like this. We do so much of this, especially if you're typing all day, you find you're slouching. We need to train ourselves to bring those shoulders back. So I'm squeezing my shoulder blades, like almost like I could squeeze a little pea between the shoulder blades. That's what we're creating. So if I come into my wide squat position, I lower down through this active squat. I get to a bit more than halfway. I stay here and I come up. Ooh, and then you feel the quads burning. Why? Because we're doing something we don't usually focus on. Don't allow yourself to arch that spine. If I see your spine rounding like this, it mainly means you are weak in your back. So we need to strengthen those back muscles to pull yourself into that alignment again. All right, so now we're going to get lower to the ground. Okay, so now, same setup. I'm going to come low down. You might even want to bring your feet in a little more now, since we've opened up into the hips a bit. You're going to lower down into a passive squat, right? So here, I don't mind if you've got your spine rounded, because we are more passive here. Now, some of you might be struggling with balance here, like you either falling forward or backwards. I don't mind if you want to keep your hands in front of you. That's fine, because that can help offer some stability, because sometimes the ankles are really tight. No problem. Okay, and let's just find some subtle movement from side to side. So in this passive squat, maybe just looking up to the ceiling, base your hand on the one knee, pivot to the other side. You can always use your hands for support. Okay, now this is either going to be easy for you or very, very challenging. You know, everyone is different. But either way, whether it's easy or difficult, we want to make sure that we are developing ourselves and we are working on that mobility and that full range so that we don't get injured. Because let's say we do jiu-jitsu, right? There's going to be so many situations where you're going to be forced to be in a squat, okay? Especially if you are passing the guard and you're trying to pin someone's legs down and you're trying to pass, you're going to be here, right? You're going to be in this shape. If you don't have good stability, good mobility and strength in your legs, this is going to be a challenge for you and you're not going to be able to do it. You could end up with injuries. So our work here is to try and prevent that, okay? So now that we've got into our squat, let's play around with active and passive. So if you want to just come up, just to take a little break, have a slight bend in the knees, breathing. And your forward fold here, shaking out the legs. All right, we're going to lower down into that passive squat. And then from here, fire into the glutes, into the quads, define an active squat. I lower down, passive, rounding through the spine, coming into my active. And we can just do, let's say, 10 repetitions. All right, moving through that active, passive range. You can play with different levels. And then straightening out into your forward fold. Now we can start talking about our sequence and the crawling patterns. So, our gorilla, first one. Okay, gorilla is such a nice tool to, one, build up your squat mobility, but also to strengthen your hip flexors. Again, super important in our jiu-jitsu, but important for athletes in general, for movers, is to have strong hip flexors, because if we're weak, this can lead to pain, back pain, all kinds of things. And so we want to strengthen our hip flexors. And especially in jiu-jitsu, like for example, when you are playing guard and you are in this shape, you hear quite a lot, right? And there's pressure coming down on you. You're trying to get sweeps, grips, right? There's going to be so much impact and so much pressure here in the hip flexors. So we want to be able to build, so you guys can actually get onto your backs. We want to be able to build this hip flexor mobility and hip flexor strength to get this point where we can get our knees to our chest and we're strong here, okay? So even if we want to do that, so now bring your knees into your chest and just find this movement here, right? This gorilla movement you'll see is as we're crawling, we're getting a lot of hip flexion happening. All right, so from our squats, we're gonna base our fists in front of us, right? So we're making a fist with the hands. Try not to base too far in front of you because then it's gonna be quite difficult. So just a little bit in front of you, but you need to feel in your body like how far that is, okay? So just experiment a bit. And then we're going to use the thumbs as toes. So as I'm basing, I'm leaning into my thumbs. And as I lean, I can actually find an extension here in my spine. Base your knees completely onto the ground next to the fists, and even feel the stretch out here. So we're feeling our hips are starting to open up. I've got this extension in my spine, and this can be nice and therapeutic. And now we build the gorilla by leaning now forward. So I'm going to start shifting my weight forward, which then in turn creates this press. So I want to press into my fists, into my shoulders. I then start to tuck my pelvis into the ribcage, navel to the spine. See here, I'm rounded and I'm pressing. So we go back into that extension again. Great spinal work. Draw my pelvis to the ribcage, navel to the spine, pressing into my fists, sucking everything in, and then I release. Just doing this is great work for the spine, for the hips. And you may even feel that you have to like shake your hands out a little bit, because you can start to feel that I'm now building heat and I'm building strength in the shoulders. All right, so now as I'm pressing, so again, creating that rounding through the spine, through the pelvis, I'm pressing. As I'm pushing into my fists, my knees start to come off the mat slightly. I lean, because the thing is, as I lean, I get light on my feet, spring my feet through, and I want to land on my heels to toe, and then my fists are still here at the back. I then find that extension by retracting my shoulders into a squat again, right? An active squat. That's my gorilla. So if I go again from my squat, basing my hands, I lean into the extension of my spine. Can even base my knees, because we're learning still, okay? In the full variation, you won't necessarily base your knees, but just for now, to feel the articulation in the spine, big press, lean. Heel turn my feet, pass the hands, find the extension, active squat. Now, let's just say for the purpose you've run out of space, okay, in your room, no problem. So what I'm going to do is stay in my squat. We're going to do a little spinning gorilla. So you're going to take your hands, base them, all right? I'm looking over my left shoulder, point them towards the left, and then from here, lean into the hands, spin to face the other side. So now I'm set up to move this way, okay? The next key here is to think about always looking where you're going. So now if we base our fists and I come here, but I am looking down, that doesn't help me, because if I'm traveling, I don't want to be traveling like this. That doesn't help me. I want to look where I'm going. Otherwise, if I'm looking down, that means I'm going to go down. So wherever you're looking, that is the direction you're traveling. That's what's key with locomotion, okay? So we're going to go the side a bit quicker now. So we're basing the fists. Extension, don't drop the knees. Keep pressing, leaning. Get light. Step it through. Basing, extension, press, light. Step it through. Heel toe, active squat. Spinning, gorilla. Nice. So you can practice a couple of those up and down your mat. Really think about working into the extension of your spine first, leaning, and then going into the rounding of your spine, which will then allow your feet to get light so that they can step past the fists. You know, we don't, we want to get that extension, lean, press, light to step through active squats. And that's your gorilla. So that's the first part, okay? You can pause and practice a couple of times. We're going to just add 2 more variations, and then we're going to go up and down the mat. This is actually a great warm-up if you are going to do a jiu-jitsu session, or if you're going to go do any kind of sports. This is a great way just to fire up the body, get yourself moving, get the heart rate up, pump the blood. Or you can just do this as a solid workout. All right, so what we're going to do is add on a sit-through. So instead of me coming here and being on the outside, when I get to that point, I'm going to actually start to slide my feet and cross them to get them through my arms. All right, so what that's going to look like is, as I base my fists in front of me, I come through. Now, you'll see here I've got to slide my right foot through, followed by the left, and I've crossed them. Can you see I've crossed them? And I'm pressing. I'm going to keep pressing to slide them through. Press, 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 press. Almost where I get forward here to this point. I'm still pushing away from the mat. Uncross them to push myself back into a squat again. So if I turn the face this way, that needs to be one smooth transition through. If you're like, I don't have the strength and you're collapsing, I want you just to think about doing it slowly, and then you can start going quicker, okay? So long as you're getting your feet really tucked into your chest, that's really what matters, and then threading them through. So it's a struggle. It really is. So we get the left foot through this time. Lean. So now the key here is to lean forward to get the knees through and to press back into a squat. Other side. Lean, 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 lean into a squat. Okay, one more time. Into a squat. So again, you can practice that up and down. I do have some other tutorials on the library where I'll break those down a little bit more slower for you. But for today's sequence, we must move on. So we've got a gorilla. So we're going to do 2 gorillas, up and down, and then 2 sit-throughs. Okay. Now, the next one I'm going to add in is actually a sit-through to a flowering lotus. All right, so this one looks like this. We're going to base the fists of the hand, basing, 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 coming through. So it's the same thing where we slide through. Now, as I get to this point here, instead of coming into a squat, we're going to stay based here, and I'm going to actually start coming onto the balls of my feet, and now slowly, slowly lower down in front of me, okay? Now, this part, just be careful, so watch out for your knees. If that's too difficult for you, as you get to this point where you come up, just come around and place the knees onto the mat. Otherwise, if your knees are fine, as you come out of the sit-through, you're going to bridge your hips to lower the knees in front of you to this point here. Now you can stay here if you're flexible enough, okay? Otherwise, you can come up onto the heels where you're going to be grabbing the heels of your feet and you're going to bridge to open up into a camel pose or a flowering lotus. Lower down. And if, for example, you are too tight to do that, then we're going to just interlace the hands here. Make sure you're pulling the shoulders away. Bridge forward, pull back, lower down. Now, this little transition here, I want you to think about scooping the air in front of you, right? You're scooping, scooping, scooping to get your knees back up into a squat. If that's too challenging, we simply come out of our camel, we base the one hand onto the floor, and you can actually put two hands if you like, and then push through the hands back into my squat position. Okay, so we want to build this up gradually. I always say you can use your hands. Use your hands to push from the ground, adjust back into your squat. You want to move slowly, slowly through these things, okay? Not too fast. And then we're going to spin the other way. So now, if you just want to shake it out for a moment. I'm feeling it in my quads. I'm sure you are as well. Okay. Now we go the other side. All right, same thing, but this time cross the left leg in front. So remember also to give yourself space. So if you're basing your hand and your hands are too close to each other, your feet won't be able to fit through. So give yourself a bit of space. So basing, extend, round. Now I send my left leg through, hold it, unravel, squat. I'm going to keep my fist on the mat. Send my hips forward. Reach for my heels or interlace my fingers. Camel. Now, lowering my hips, rounding through my spine, scooping the air. Sit back, sit back, sit back to pull the knees forward. If that's too difficult, like I said to you, you can base the hands. And same thing, sit back, push through the hands to push yourself up again, to pivot onto the other side, shake out the legs. So you'll see with most of the mobility transitions that I share with you, you can always use your hands to modify. Just make sure that as that transition, when you go into the camel, make sure that when you're lowering your knees, when you're bringing your knees back up, you base the hands and you actually push through your hands to get your knees up. So if you can't, for example, if you're here and you're pressing, you're not pushing through your hands, you're trying to just lift your knees up, you won't be able to. So I want you to actually push through your hands, push, 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 and that way you can safely get your legs off the mat without hurting yourself. Okay. Right, so let's just put this little kind of gorilla sequence loop together. You're going to do 2 of each one. All right, so we're going to do 2 of each one twice. That makes sense. You're going to do 2 gorillas up and down, 2 gorilla sit-throughs up and down, and then 2 gorillas to camel pose up and down. All right, so from here, we base 2 gorillas, moving slow. spin, 2 gorillas, spin, into out, sit through, lean, squat, 1 more, side, spin, all right, gotta go this side. This is tough work, even I'm feeling it. And spin, shake it out if you need. 1 more, I'm gonna go gorilla sit through, to our bridge, to our camel, reverse, spin, ooh, the quads. I'm gonna go again, yeah, sit through, bridge, camel, reverse, through, whoa, and rest. All right, so try to do that one a little bit slower. Towards the end there, my legs were like, no, it's not happening. All right, good job, guys. So that's a nice little pre-mobility warm-up session, or you can also do it obviously as part of your training. Let's just cool down slightly. So we're gonna actually just step forward into a lunge position. Come up into your lunge position and lean forward slightly, nice tall spine. Now, if you can, take your right hand. Make sure also that your feet are not in like one straight line. Make sure it's like rail tracks. So you've got 2 parallel lines to be more stable. And you're gonna try and reach for this back leg. All right, and you're gonna hold it there, okay? Now, if that feels good, we're gonna lean a bit more forward into the stretch. If you can actually use both hands if you've got enough flexibility and balance. Otherwise, just one hand is fine. Get a nice stretch in the quad. Release that leg. Now base both your hands behind you, tuck the toes underneath. You're going to shift just the bones back. Curl the feet up. Lowering over the leg. Finding this nice stretch in the hamstring. You can point your toe as well if you want, flex it. Just make sure that you're pulling your left hip back and your right hip's coming forward. Rocking forward again. Now pressing into your hands. You're going to recoil this foot back. Switch it out with the right. And you're going to come up into that lunge. Shifting forward a bit. Catching your breath. Now if you can, reach with the left hand for that foot. Find this nice stretch here. Okay. And then face your hands. Shifting back. Flex the toes up. Finding this beautiful stretch in the hamstring. And then from this lunge, you're going to windshield wipers. So bring your hands in front of you, and then this left leg is going to corkscrew underneath you, and then you take your left arm base into your hip, and then extend this right leg. Okay, we can keep this left one inside, and from here we're going to, if you can, think of getting your right elbow inside and then taking this left arm over and finding this opening. So you're spiraling open, reaching for your toes, not touching your toes because I want you to get more of an opening across the rib cage. Then releasing, then turn to your leg and see if you can fold over the leg, reaching for the toes. Coming up. Now we're going to scissors the legs. You switch it out. Same thing with the elbow. Reach. Folding over the leg. And then finally releasing the leg into our straddle. Now think about just moving in and out slowly. If you're really, really tight here and you are extremely stiff, I want you to bend the legs as much as you can. And then you're going to push through the heels and then see if you can come into the space. All right. Even if your back is slightly rounded, that's okay. And you can start to fix that by reaching your hands out with these bent knees. You get more of a straighter spine. And gradually with time, you can start to push the legs down. Okay. But if you can try to come into your fullest expression of this. Beautiful. All right. Thank you guys for joining me for today's class. I'll see you in the next one.